Our contribution for this greenhouse emission is 0.02%. But we are the ninth most vulnerable countries in the world in terms of climate change. We have to put these things in international platforms and we need to seek their support.
Welcome back, everybody. Richard Baker, founder of Collective Responsibility, here today with another episode of the Sustainable Ambassador Podcast. Through this podcast, I'm engaging with senior government officials, corporate leaders, nonprofit, academics, individuals who are working within the sustainability realm about the work that we're doing every day to understand, address, and hopefully solve some of the challenges that we face. And in this episode, I'm extremely excited to be joined by Madhu Marasini, who's a secretary for the National Planning Commission of Nepal. I reached out to him after a LinkedIn post where he took a couple pictures of a mountain that was near him and talking about the potential impacts of climate change, a little bit of his concern, and also how it affected his work. And he has graciously accepted the offer to join us here. So Madhu, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Welcome. Good evening, Rich. So very pleased to talking with you.
All right. So as a starting point, maybe introduce yourself and a little bit about the work that you're doing.
So myself, Madhu Marasini, currently working as the secretary at the National Planning Commission of the Government of Nepal. The National Planning Commission is the apex policy making body for the Government of Nepal. And I am from this position. Currently, I am leading the implementation process of Nepal's 16th development plan. That's a 5-year plan. And also, I'm looking after the implementation progress of Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Alongside these two major tasks, I'm also steering the progress of Nepal's LDC graduation because we are the least developed countries. So we are poised to graduate by this status by 2026. And apart from these core jobs, of course, I'm looking after the climate change issues as well as development issues that Nepal, which are very pressing issues for a country like Nepal.
As a starting point, I mean, I've been in Asia for a long time, so I understand 5-year plans and the use for many of the governments in the region. But a lot of our audience is in the US, Europe, and other locations. Can you talk a little bit about that first job that you have? What is the 5-year plan? What does it cover? And maybe speak to how it, aligns with the challenges of sustainability.
We have a plan development approach, right? So we produce periodic plans and our development programs, our budget allocations, our priorities will be based on that particular plan. So the 16th development periodic plan, it has now identified 13 transformative strategies, right? So these are the priority strategies of Nepal to transform Nepal from a least developed country to a middle income country. Among those 13, they are the cross-cutting, strategies because one strategy alone cannot, help us to attain our goal of happy Nepal, prosperous Nepal, happy Nepal. That's our long-term goal. So they are cross-cutting. They complement each other. And one of them, I should be mentioning you that one of them is, biodiversity, climate change, and transforming towards green economy as well. And I think for this periodic plan, as I already mentioned, that's what the government of Nepal will do in next 5-year plan. It charts out that goals, that objectives, and that strategies. As I mentioned you that currently this plan has 13 transformative strategies.
Now, a lot of government plans, I'm an American, a lot of things don't go to plan, or we don't have a very consolidated plan. What's the process to ensure that like this plan is actionable? Like, do you work with all the departments, national and local, or is this something that's essentially developed and then over time you roll it out?
Well, no. It is developed in a quite consultative manner, and that comes. It's kind of bottom-up approach, right? So we collect all the needs and priorities from the bottom, but the plan is built in the center, so that it's massively consultative process that we apply, because until and unless we don't have proper information, then the plan will not be credible. And later stage, we will find difficulties in implementing this plan. That's why this was built throughout consultation, not only like among within the government agencies, but also with the private sector. We have also shared that we have also consulted with our development partners, and potential investors. All the stakeholders, they were well consulted, and we came up with this plan, and this plan was endorsed by the cabinet of Nepal government. And now the task of implementing and steering this implementation process of this plan lies on the National Planning Commission. That's what I'm doing currently.
Now, if I were to ask you kind of like about the history of, say, social and environmental issues within the country, would you say that, say, climate change has always been important, or is it something that's growing in importance? And how is kind of a lower income developing nation moving into a middle income nation? How do you see some of these challenges changing over time? Like, was poverty, education, healthcare the priority to start, and then environment came later, or
Well, climate change as a subject, subject matter as a priority areas is kind of a latecomer, to be very frank with you, because we are a latecomer in this development process, right? And originally, our priority was for the infrastructure building and alleviating poverty, and of course, providing universal health and education. They were critical, and providing the social security. Latter stage, because of this reoccurring natural disasters, and because we were having, like, our forest covered land was also, getting down significantly. So we are experiencing sometimes, on-seasonal rainfall and other types of disasters. So that started reoccurring, right? And then government started, oh no, this is because of the climate change, and more attention now is being placed on in this area.
so it's really just the awareness of the impact of the wider climate change and how it was impacting your own environment, your own daily lives.
Yes, yes, it is. It is impacting. It is impacting. Like many people, it is also impacting in our livelihoods, in also some sort of, I would say, in our civilization, in our culture. And many people are, migrating because, they're because of the difficulties, because of the severe effects of climate change. Now their village is not providing their livelihoods, right? It's even they are not able to, grow what they used to grow earlier. So it has a wider, negative effect in our life and livelihoods. Yeah.
So if you were to talk about, say, you guys face a very unique set of challenges and climate pressures. What are a few of the big ones that you're really concerned with, say, for this upcoming 5-year plan? How specific do you get, and what are two or three of the big items that you're trying to solve?
Well, yeah, there are numerous, effects that we are experiencing, but the most critical ones are, you see, the melting Himalayas, mountains, right? So if you go to now because Nepal is very, very, famous as well for the natural beauty, because of its majestic mountains, right? But the majestic mountains now, the snow is melting and they are turning into like big boulders. And it's not only that, because of this melting mountains, melting ice, or snows, because mountain is the source of our water resource that has, effects, negative effects in our quantity of water flow, that will have direct bearing, even in irrigation, right? In irrigation, in hydropower, in many areas of our economy and agriculture area as well. Number two is glacier lakes glow, right? And they outburst as well. And lately, just last year, we had in Khumbu, which is very close to Mount Everest. So a glacier lake outburst happened, and then that had the cascading effect, right? It is not only the lake outburst, but because it created a flood, and then it, swept away the fertile land, and people turned to poverty, right? Because the little thing they had was their land, and they used to grow there and they used to live there, but it swept away the means of living as well. And the number third is that because we also having some new types of diseases as well, waterborne diseases, that's although the other ramification. And according to, I mean, let me put you a more strong way. According to one of the studies, that because of this reoccurring natural disasters, Nepal is losing around 1.5 to 2.5% GDP per annum.
Sorry, how does it impact GDP? Is it because your loss of tourism, loss of agriculture, the cost of migration? Like how do you calculate that, or what are some constraints?
Well, the number one is that the constraints are because of this reoccurring, natural disaster, because of the climate change. It has direct impact on our infrastructures. Just let me tell you, uh, this last September in capital city in Kathmandu, right? It rained just for 24 hours, and the billions rupees worth of infrastructure that was swept away because of this, landslides, and then the river uncontrolled river. You see, so such things, and also that has impacted our, agricultural field, irrigation system, so transportation, and also some of the hydropower projects as well. They were damaged. So this is not only this year, right? This is recurring. So that has posed us, serious challenge, and that's how we are calculating. Like, we have data as well. It will establish that the loss is 1.5 to 2.5
So it's
percent in
it's
our
very
GDP.
directly tied to the actual cost of the losses involved, not necessarily the indirect cost, which are still many trying to figure out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, actual loss. Yeah.
Now, one of the things I've always had kind of an interest in is like, okay, you know the problems, and now the catalyst for change is it's tangible for you. You feel it. You know you need to change. You're losing 1.5% of GDP, so the idea that solving the environment is a negative to the economy is kind of lost. Now you have to figure out. So, how do you then take this and embed this into your plan so that you reverse or you mitigate the losses?
Well, yeah, that is why, we are prioritize this climate agenda in our 5-year plan. And then we are because this is a cross-cutting issue. This is one ministry or own agency cannot sort it out. And we have to also bring this issue to our international, to the international level as well. Because Nepal, our contribution for this greenhouse emission is 0.02%, right? But we are the ninth most vulnerable countries in the world in terms of climate change. So you see, so this has to we have to put these things in international platforms, and we need to seek their support. And for that, we are entitled to as well, because we are bearing the cost for doing nothing. And maybe someone has did something or has been doing something, but the loss is Nepal, like a country like Nepal, is bearing the loss. And also, like domestically as well, we have to create a lot of public awareness as well. We need to tell our people also that how you do farming now, climate friendly farming, right? What is the importance of tree plantation, or how you can do sustainable, irrigation system, how we build like infrastructure in a more sustainable manner. Simultaneously, we have to back create awareness and embed this climate policy in our planning process, in our budgeting, in our allocation, and also to our private sector, and bring this agenda into the international arena as well, so that we will be able to, bring their attention as well, and then we'll get, maybe they will fulfill their responsibilities.
Now, the other side to that is that your resources domestically can be quite constrained as well. So, how do you line up all you need to get done, the fact that you're bearing the cost of others with the resources that you have at hand? Like, do you think that you have enough resources domestically without the global fund or without other support, or are you still finding that you need the technical expertise and you need the financials to really support your goals?
Well, yes, that is a quite a challenge for us, because we have to get, financial support, because the resource is number one constraint for us. We are calculating how much we need the additional resource. For example, like to implement our NDC, the second NDC, though we are now building the third one as well. But to implement the second NDC by 2030, we need 33 billion USD. And also like to attain, this zero emission target, overall, I was looking at the number. The estimation is we Nepal needs additional 276 billion USD. And what is happening currently is how much we getting is, I was calculating like we are currently getting support, some projects, right, from Climate Investment Fund, from GCF, ZEF, and Adaptation Fund, and a little bit from the LDC fund as well. Totally, that is around only 300 plus $1 million. So that's the gap of resource. For that as well, we have to go to the international donors, and we need to bring out Nepal's agenda with them, and then seek the support, right?
Diving a little bit deeper into your plan, obviously to, I guess, reduce your own contributions to these challenges as well as to kind of incentivize investment, you need to kind of, reform some of the regulations, some of the sticks, but then also introduce some new carrots. Can you talk a little bit about those, how those tools factor into your planning? And are there a couple of regulations you think that are required? And are there a couple of kind of incentives that you're throwing out to international donors, international investors? Like, how much do you need to change to really make those things happen?
Well, yeah, we have been, also changing our policy. For example, now we are encouraging, the electronic vehicles, EVs. So the tariff on the EVs has been drastically reduced compared to the other vehicles that they use the fossil fuel. And I was calculating because I was the finance secretary as well. I was calculating the number last year alone, when I calculated how much we lose the revenue because we incentivize the EVs. That was around 61 billion rupees, right? Because we wanted to roll out, replace the fossil fuel vehicles with the EVs. And from the current year's budget, we have also introduced a green tax on the items of that produce GSG. And we do have this climate change policy, right? And we are also revising our forest act. We are also revising other acts and regulations. And very recently, Nepal Central Bank, that's Nepal Rashtra Bank of Nepal, it has come up with green finance taxonomy, right? So that private investment, so it will, private investors should follow, or the banks should follow the green finance taxonomy. So that's also we are now, started doing. So we are encouraging our private sector, and we are also coordinating with our development partners. For example, in 2021, I was then the finance secretary. We signed a grid approach, right? Grid initiative. That's green, resilient, and inclusive development with World Bank and 16 other development partners, so that the new infrastructure that we will build will be greener, but then there will be support from the international development partners as well, because we have resource constraint. So a lot of things happening.
That's great. And how much are you yourself, like who's responsible at the ultimately for executing this? Is this are you gonna have a centralized kind of climate environmental group, or do you send those out to the different departments, say transportation, infrastructure, agriculture? And does each kind of area, like say agriculture or infrastructure, do they have their own unique, say, changing regulations to make them a little bit stronger, as well as unique incentives to make them a little bit more attractive?
Well, of course, because this is a cross-cutting issue. So this is rolled out with sectoral ministries and departments as well. So now, for example, currently we are also have been discussing on the new agricultural policy, new agricultural development strategy. So that will be also focusing on climate resilient agriculture system, indigenous productions, right? Because Nepal, it's not only beautiful. We have all types of weather, you know. So and our productions like, you know, very nutritious as well. Buckwheats or millets, they are very good for your health as well. But what happened is, people have, because of globalization also, our farmers also, maybe they went for this easy products, sort of, I would not be saying like junk, but kind of junk products. They were not that much careful of the importance of the things that they were growing. Now we are creating awareness on that as well, and we are incentivizing them. Even we are, incentivizing them to use like indigenous. I mean, to produce indigenous type of, products, and also not to use the chemical fertilizers, but to use organic fertilizers, right? They can, you know, find that in the villages. So a lot of things are going, and even in the transportation as well, the roads should be built in a meeting with, the climate uh, resilience, infrastructure, that, they're building that way. And our donors also now having, they do it. We do, of course, like EIA, environment assessment, even before doing any bigger projects. So in all sectors, even in industries also, we encourage to replace the, diesel boilers from the electronic ones. See, so we are incentivizing the industries as well. So trying to do, though, we have this resource constraint, of course.
And I guess the last question, kind of about like the government programs and things, is, at the national level, I find it's often easy to create a plan that for the country works, but each local economy has different constraints, and some of them are like, look, I'm not having a good year right now. I can't add to this. How do you plan for that, or how do you work with those groups? Do you help fund their programs? Do you just give them a little bit more time and understanding? We need to solve these problems, but how do you support those who really just don't have the capacity to?
Like we say, every drop of water makes ocean, right? So everyone has to do, like, on their own capacity, but has to prioritize this area. And government of Nepal, we have started, climate coding in our allocation, in our budgeting system. How much budget is being allocated, we can track, is being allocated for the climate sensitive projects. So for example, currently it's a very small number, right? Amount, about 6% of our budget allocation is directly impacting to climate change, climate resilience, right? So the planning commission, or the 16th periodic plan, it has a target to increase that to 20% in next, until next 5 years, within next 5 years. And this approach we are also, implementing in our local planning process. So local level governments also, when they, make their budget, their allocation, they have to also allocate certain amount of, money towards this area, and also provinces as well. And because central government is, of course, is, little bit more, it has more resources and maybe more power as well. So we are trying to convince and create awareness down to the local areas. Very recently, planning commission, we organized even an interaction program for the government secretaries, right? Of all the secretaries of the government, and the chief secretary himself, moderated that program. And then we have made a commitment also, right? We have made kind of declaration of our commitment. There is a 7 point declaration, and then in that, every one of us has committed that we will scale up this investment into the climate resiliency, and that is also rolled out to the provinces and local level as well. And in that, actually, in that interaction program, we had also invited representatives from our local government as well as provincial government. So we're trying, yeah, trying that everyone wants, let everyone want, because, like, it's not, say, like planning commission's, job, right? You cannot, change things in isolation, right? It impacts every area, like health, health, education, employment, property, every area, right? In practice, so everyone has to be, into the same boat. That's what we're trying as well.
Well, and I kind of that's where I want to switch into you as an individual, operating. You're not in a climate role per se, but you interface with climate a lot. And the fact that you're allocating 20% of your budget going forward, I mean, that's a
Mhm.
significant contribution. That's almost like a
We will. We
military
will.
level, allocation.
We know
And
we
this is,
wanted to make it 20%. Right now it's
yeah,
six. The target is 20%. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
but still, like
military.
that's almost like a military level allocation, right? Like you're at war to solve the climate. And I mean, it can't be easy for you. So where do you get that passion to, or where do you get the drive to really bring more climate, bring more environments in when you're just graduating into the middle income country? Like, why is this so important to you?
Well, because this is affecting very severely in our lifeline. The mountains are our civilization, in our culture, right? When something is creating, giving you existential threat, then you have to, find the alternatives so that you will survive, and your nature will be, survive, right? Your mountains will look the same, pristine and beautiful, and majestic like they used to be. So we have no option, Rich. You have to put every effort because it is directly affecting our personal life as well as our GDP, as I already mentioned, I mean, informed you, and our mother nature as well. We are very famous on tourism, right? People come to Nepal to see the natural beauty. But when you go to, like, Mount Masapuziri area or other areas, and then when you see only a necked boulder, what's the, what's the meaning? So this is our identity. This is our culture, and we have to push by it.
I can see that you prioritize it and you're very kind of ardent in it. When you're talking to your peers, do they share the same concerns at the same level? And if not, do you have to bring it back a little bit and be a little bit more business policy regular, like a little bit more guarded, or can you be really proactively environmentally focused and everyone's now starting to go, okay, we get it. It's okay. Let's do it.
So of course we do have, like, I mean, we still have around 20% people, like, below poverty line. We have to look after them. But the climate change, the disasters is making them further poor. That means that we have to work on this area, and so it's connected with every aspect of our economy. So there is, talking about climate resiliency does not mean that we are giving up our education investment, because that, we have to build good school buildings as well, right? For example, and we have to teach our students so that they will be aware when they graduate from the school, right? So that's how we are rolling out these things.
Okay. But when you're engaging with people, do you use data? Do you use kind of, research reports? Is it the pictures of a naked boulder? Like, what is it that you find is the most engaging for, be it your peers or for those who are still struggling to understand like why it's so important?
Well, it's not. I don't think that we need much amount of effort, because they are confronting in their daily lives. They are encountering drought, right? And they are encountering unseasonal rain, right? And this is the winter in Nepal, right? This winter there was no rainfall at all. Earlier, it used to rain during the winter, and our farmers used to grow winter crops. That would be their livelihood, right? So they started migrating. They started leaving their, ancestral place, because they cannot produce, they cannot survive, they cannot eat. That's the thing. That's the dirt. Yeah.
I want to go a little bit back to kind of like the international relationships and the work that you're doing there. Are there governments, are there structures, are there organizations that you find are really proactively trying to help you? And when you think about how foreign investment or how foreign nonprofits or, collaborative organizations can work with you, like what are some things that you wish you like that work really well for yourself in Nepal? Like where are the areas of help and how can others help you?
But with the donors, because there are, it's not only, I mean, Nepal's issue is very pressing, but there are other countries as well. So we have to put a lot of effort. For example, like during this COP 29, the developing countries, they were expecting 1.3 trillion support, right? And ended up with 300 billion. The same thing happens like when we talk bilaterally in Nepal as well. So we have to put a lot of effort. They are not supporting, the way they have to support us. And this climate finance, getting climate finance per se is very complicated. They do have also huge amount of bureaucracy. To get one project approved by GCF, we had one study, it took like 36 to 45 months. That means almost 4 years
It's a lot of work.
to get approval, right? And then when you come to the implementation, and you can imagine how long would it take. The process has to be cut short, and the amount is not that significant too. And they have to come with the, directly supporting with the government, maybe to the government. So we have to do a lot of things, and we have to convince, and so we need some more support as well, even to put our agendas with these donors.
Yeah. So how do you personally, given its pressing issues, it takes a long time to kind of see the results and then to plan for it and then to get to pilot. Like, how do you maintain your personal momentum and passion for this? Like, how do you just not get frustrated and be like, I'm done. I'm gonna go try and I'm going to corporate. I'm gonna make this work faster. Like, how do you maintain your professional kind of commitment, the passion personally, so that you can see through these challenges?
This is, I am growing, it's a growing passion for me, right? I'm not a climate scientist, but yeah, when I see what is happening like around me, like I realize, you see, no, if people like myself do not speak, who will speak for my country? Who will speak for my people, right? So that's what motivated me, and doing a bit what I can do from my position, you know, campaigning for climate and making the world sustainable and making our development sustainable, livable for everyone, not only for me.
Couple more questions. One of them being, if you were speaking to another commissioner like yourself who's looking to bring sustainability into their national planning or into their national strategy, what are a couple pieces of advice you'd give them to get started? I know there's a lot of global south nations that are really coming up in this process. What are some things that you've learned? What are some key pieces of advice you'd give them?
Go to the grassroots level, go to the affected people, and see from your own eye. Because without stakeholders consultation, without talking to the people who are bearing the cost of this climate change or disaster, the plans and programs that we make sitting in the center will not be implementable, and they will not be owned by these people, right, who are really who needed this policy and program. So our intervention will not be effective. Consult, engage with those affected people, and then we need to have a real scenario when we translate that, when write our development plans, so that they will be later. Because at the end of the day, when it's the implementation stage, then you have to go back to the same people. And back then they will be not, if they are not aware of these things, then they will not help you even to implement, right? And they will not be effective. So I'll tell them, engage with those people who are affected. Go to those areas like where you see the, the the real depth of the problem, so that your plan and policies will be more credible, and later stage we can implement in a way that we envision.